Good morning. Today I figured I would hop on here, out here by the water. Peaceful, beautiful out here. So I wanted to kind of be a voice for my grandmother, my dad's mom that left the Amish when he was just a 3-year-old, 4-year-old little boy. Haven't talked a whole lot about her, but she had left the Amish, and this week, it would be exactly, let's see here, 2012 is when she passed away. And there was a lot that I learned from her when I found her after I left the Amish and found her, because she had left the Amish when, way before I was born. My dad was just a little boy. So since this is the week that marks the anniversary when my grandmother passed away, she was not Amish. And I just felt like I need to hop on here and just kind of share, kind of be a voice for her. She never really, the Amish church did not hear her. They refused to listen to her. And they just kept shunning her on some of the things that she tried to bring out. Some of the truth that she was trying to bring out, not only about my grandpa, my dad's dad, but also about other individuals in the community, and some of the abuse, some of the sexual abuse, the rapes and such. When she tried to kind of speak out about those things, she got heavy backlash from the church. Oh, you don't talk about that stuff. You're supposed to, women are supposed to totally, completely, 100% submit not only to the church, but to the husband. And so since women have no power, they just have no voice in the old order original Amish where I come from, then they look at women as liars when the man does not agree with what the woman just came forward with or what she had to say, because she's supposed to submit to the man. So if they verify and ask the man is what they're going to listen to. So my grandpa, he was an evil man, and he would tell them that his wife, my grandma, is lying. And so I didn't know none about this stuff until after I left the Amish. All I knew growing up was my grandma's a really bad person. My grandma gave herself over to the devil. That's the things I was hearing ever since childhood. And so I heard a lot of bad things about how she's, going to go to hell. She was born and raised Amish, and then she left her husband, and that's forbidden, not supposed to get a divorce, and she's going to burn in hell, and she's condemned. And I heard nothing but one side of the story, and that was the Amish side of the story. Then I left the Amish, and I went in search of finding her. And I actually, when I first left the Amish, I actually thought it would be impossible to find her. But I was very desperate because I knew that she would have something where I could get clarity on everything. I only heard one side of the story, and I knew there's a reason why my grandmother left the Amish. It's not just, I'm going to abandon my family and just walk out because I'm selfish and I want to be happy. And no, I knew deep down inside my spirit, I knew there's no way a woman that loves her children can just walk out that door with no regret, missing her children. I mean, you love your children. And so I knew deep within myself, even though I didn't say it to my Amish family or my mom, I knew that there's some answers I'm going to get if I find and locate my grandmother. So that's what I did. It took me a couple of years and getting online. Thank God for worldly computers, because that's what I used. And I went on there and I was trying to find her. She had been married several different times, and when I found her, I realized that she had always pursued the wrong guy, and she had been remarried 4 times. She just ended up with these guys that were nothing but losers and drunks and woman beaters. And they were womanizers. They were cheaters. And it's just, I don't know how she became so unlucky after leaving the Amish, but she just always seemed to have ended up with some dude that was a filthy scumbag. I mean, let's be honest, because as I listened to her when I found her, and I went all the way from Ohio down to Florida, and of course, long story short, I ended up bringing her to Ohio, and she was able to stay with me for a long time, along with her veteran husband. He served in the military and in the Vietnam and stuff, and they lived with us for a while. But what I want to share is her side of the story in this video. Since this is the week that marks the anniversary that my grandmother passed away, I want to kind of share some of those things with you guys that she shared with me. She went through a living hell on that Amish farm before she left. My grandpa, my dad's dad, was a cheater. He did Amish chiropractic care, they call it. He's not licensed. He didn't go to college. He didn't go to any schooling or anything like that, but he was good at massaging people and get their back in place and, you know, all of that kind of stuff. And what really disturbed me is 99.9% of his patients were women and young girls. I mean, go figure that out. But when she started telling me this stuff, she started catching him in the act where he was cheating on her. And even when my dad was a little baby, when he was born, they always get a maid when there's a newborn baby. So they got his niece, his side of the family, his niece was the maid when my dad was born as a little baby. And she went down to the basement and she caught him. Excuse me. She caught him having a relationship sexually with his own niece that was the maid when my dad was born. So she tried to bring some of these issues to the church, and he lied out of it. He says, oh, nope, that ain't true. And since the women have to submit to the man, if the man says, nope, that didn't happen, she's a liar, she hates me, and all of this, they believed him. And so she got to the point where she felt trapped. She felt like, hey, this is not justice. They're not believing me. And he was a narcissistic person. At that time, I didn't know what that was, but my grandmother shared with me how he was just a professional liar, a narcissist, and whatever he said, the church believed. He was a well-respected man. Everybody came to him for chiropractic care in the Amish, and so he was looked at as a good man. And so when she tried to expose some of this stuff, they just wasn't having it. And so the day came where she said, I'm not going to put up with this. You know, she told me, she says, I loved my kids. I loved your dad, she told me. But I was in so much misery and agony that I even thought about taking my kids with me, but I knew, she said, that the Amish church would come after them, after her, and they have no problem. They usually teach you should never sue anyone or get a lawyer. But when it comes to somebody that is coming against their church, if you leave and disagree with them, they have no problem getting a lawyer and hiring a lawyer and try to get the kids back if they have to. So she didn't want that fight. She just wanted to be free. She wanted to eliminate all the pain. So she took off and she left the Amish. And so that's why I grew up, you know, only hearing the Amish side of the story. And how the Amish church was saying how she's condemned and she's going to hell. But now, all at once, I'm hearing her side of the story, and I realize how much she was going through and why she eliminated. You know, a lot of people was kind of viewing my grandma as, oh, well, that's very selfish of you to worry about your pain, not worried about my dad, Henry Yoder, and his depression, what he might go through because you let. I don't look at it that way. I don't view my grandmother as being selfish at all because I lived it. I lived through the misery of religion. The Old Order Amish Church has so much power and control, and with the legalism and the rules and just the stuff, the crimes and stuff that get forgiven and they move on, and what the church hides is disgusting. And so I do not view my grandma as have done anything wrong. So I was just amazed and listened to her for hours and hours when I visited her, and then also when I moved her home back to Kenton, Ohio, and took care of her for a long time until I ended up with a job where I couldn't take care of her anymore, and sadly I had to put her in a nursing home, and then she passed away in the nursing home. Now, since this week is the anniversary when my grandma passed away, I want to share with you how her will was to not have any Amish at her funeral. Most of the Amish, including my mother, I've done videos on here before where I told you guys how my mom said, me and my ex-Amish brother that also left the Amish, we are not allowed to be at her funeral. And while my grandma was former Amish from like 1963 all the way until 2012, when she passed away, not one Amish individual in the family or community ever attempted to reach out to her or visit her. They were never there for her. They just said she's going to hell. She disagrees with the Amish religion and abandoned the Amish religion, so she's condemned. Now she passes away, and I knew what she told me, that it'd be her will not to have any of these religious goats. She always called them goats. She always said, I don't want those religious goats in my funeral. I don't want them in my house. They never cared about me up until now. They never listened to me when I was trying to report the abuse and the sexual stuff that was going on. And so I remembered that, and all the other former Amish that left on my dad's side of the family. They came, my dad's sister, Ruby, her and her kids, most of them left the Amish out of Gladwin, Michigan. They came down, and we had our little group of Yoder side of the family there for the funeral. And wouldn't you know it, here comes one of those Yoder toter vans pulling into the funeral home. We're like, oh boy, here we go. Somebody leaked out the word and the Amish got wind of it, and here comes some Amish in the Yoder toter van. Well, let's just say that got very interesting, because we kind of met that person at the van and we said, there will not be any Amish in this funeral. We're not allowed to come to the Amish out here without our Amish clothes on to visit, and also I can't come to my mom's funeral. I said, you ain't coming in here. You reject us, what comes around goes around. I'm not trying to be rude. We love others as ourselves, but we just, just because we're a Christian doesn't make me a doormat for you to stomp on and take advantage of us. So Grandma's will was to not have any Amish at her funeral. So guess what? We're going to respect that. She has no living will written up, but by her word of mouth, I remember what she said, and there will not be any Amish in this funeral. And that van had to turn around with the Amish and go all the way back up to Michigan. They hired a driver. They wasted all that money for no reason, because we didn't feel like tolerating these religious hypocrites for telling us all these rules and this stuff when we left the Amish. So now it's our time to say, hey, look, you're not gonna let us come out there. Guess what? What comes around goes around. You're not gonna step foot in here, and you're not gonna see her body, because while she was alive, you didn't care for her, you didn't love her, you condemned her, you rejected her, you said she's going to hell. So why are you here now? Why are you here now trying to see her dead body laying in a coffin? You didn't care before. Oh, the angers were flaring. Oh, you could see the anger. These Amish people didn't like that. And so we turned them away, and they went back home. So that's the story with my grandmother. I just wanted to get on here, and I haven't shared a whole lot about my grandmother that left the Amish. And I just wanted to be a voice for her. She didn't have a voice. She went through a living hell. She had the Amish church come up against her in any way, shape, or form that they could, because women have no authority. Women have to be silent. Women have to be submissive, not only to the husband, but to the church. And they have to be silent in the church. And so the old order system, I'll never put all the Amish in the same boat. Not all of them are to this cultish extreme. But the system where I grew up in is very much like a cult. And therefore the women they're silenced a lot. The women, they have no voice. They have no authority. They get shut up, and they are told to submit, and that's the end of the story. So I really, really look up to my grandma, because she's one of the few that was bold enough and strong enough to say, I'm not going to put up with you. You know how many are in there right now that they don't know any better. They're too weak to even stand up for themselves. My grandmother, she stood up for herself, and I look up to that. That's kind of what fired me up to be bold. That's kind of what fired me up to speak out on here, on social media, out to, I've been to a lot of different churches, a lot of different conferences where we make awareness about the old order Amish system. And that's kind of what fired me up to be bold, because I realized the depth of what is going on in the church when I spoke with my grandmother. because I knew the man side of things. I knew the rules and everything that I got in trouble for. But now I was able to speak to my first former Amish female, which is my grandma, and what she was going through and what she was enduring and how the church treated her when she was trying to expose her husband, my grandpa, with cheating and sexual abuse and all of this just filthy stuff. And I realized that she was shut up. She was silenced. And that's why my motto became, when I started a YouTube channel after I left the Amish, that's why my motto became, I will give a voice to those that were silenced and help those that cannot help themselves. And that's why I have interviewed tons of former Amish, former Mennonites, because I want to give them a voice. I want to give people like my grandmother a voice because they didn't have a voice and they were silenced by the religious cults. And so this Sunday, guys, I will be going live with the very first interviewee that I had, the person I interviewed to share the testimony. Her name is Ruth Miller. Back in 2019, when I first started doing interviews and giving victims a voice, I'm going to re-interview her. She's been through some things and she's grown in the Lord quite a bit. And she's got a powerful testimony. So I'm going to go YouTube live this Sunday, probably between noon and 1 o'clock Eastern time. And so be looking for that. So anyway, you all have a blessed day. See ya.